What's up, y'all? We've got Dale Thorn in the house, SDR leader, SDR freaking slayer in terms of what he's done in his career, how he approaches the game, and he is here today to share with us his top 3 favorite interview questions to ask SDRs. So, Dale, welcome. Do you want to give a quick intro?
Thanks, Jack. Yeah, I'd love to. So I've been working in technology sales for 9 years. So I've worked as an SDR, as an account executive. And when I was an account executive, I started doing pro bono work, so unpaid, at a tech sales boot camp, where I trained more than 130 students to perform excel in the role, but also how to interview for the role. And more than 90% of the students that I taught ended up getting their first SDR role in technology.
Come on.
And then leading from that, then I've been in sales account leadership for 3.5 years, where I've evaluated thousands of applicants, interviewed hundreds of candidates, and hired more than 40 SDRs. And then in the meantime, what I've been doing as I'm looking for my next leadership role, I've been meeting with a lot of SDR leaders, but also a lot of SDR candidates. So as of today, I've met my 370th leader in 9 months. And that also includes 56 SDR candidates, where I coach them on resume formatting, LinkedIn formatting, but also how to interview for the role. And around 70% of the students, the SDR candidates that I've met, landed their first or next SDR role within a month after meeting me.
Amazing.
So that's a little bit about my background.
So we should care, is what you're saying. We've got a special guest here who knows what he's talking about. So, Dale, let's get into it. What are your top 3 favorite interview questions to ask SDR candidates? And we can start with the first.
Sure. So the top 3 questions I usually ask SDR candidates is why tech sales, why my company, and then at the very end, I throw a curveball question around blind spots.
Okay. All right. Well, let's start with the first one, which is probably the first question that they get asked. Why tech sales? So why do you ask that question?
The reason why is because for a couple different reasons I ask that question. The first one is I want to make sure that they're going into it for the right reasons, because SDR candidates, they can be doing sales anywhere, but why specifically tech sales? And the main answer that I generally look for is money and promotion, but most importantly, why? And the reason why that's so important is because it's in tandem of exactly why an SDR org actually exists. One, to generate high qualified pipeline, which in case that the team is actually hitting goal, then they're making that the leader and also the team members are actually making money. The second reason why an SDR org exists is to be a talent pool to be eventually promoted into future roles. So why tech sales? It should be money and promotion, because that's the 2 reasons why the SDR role actually exists. So, but again, around money and promotion, but most importantly, why? They have to know why they want to make money. They have to know why they want to be promoted into a specific type of role, because it's hard for a leader to actually bring somebody on, but also coach them to something when they don't even know what they want and also why they want it. So if I was an SDR candidate, this is what I wish somebody told me this when I got into sales development. If I was to answer that question, I'd say, the reason why I want to get into tech sales is potential to make a lot of money. The reason why I want to make a lot of money is because I live in the Bay Area. The cost of living is so high. And so I want to be able to afford to stay here. Second reason why I want to get into tech sales is potential to be promoted into an account executive role, or the potential of making even more money to provide more options to myself, but then my family in the long term, because they gave me so much. Does that tell you why I want to get into tech sales? The last part I just shared right there is to show that either the recruiter or the hiring manager or whoever they're talking to that they're actually practicing active listening, because that's a huge part of being in sales development, especially when you're doing discovery or qualifications with prospects. You want to always practice active listening, so you're showing in the case that you actually can do the job in itself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it, man. I think there's a shame that I hear candidates come in with when they talk about money in interviews. And so I get one of 3 answers. One, they talk about money and they do it the way you did. They talk about it confidently, but they have a strong why behind it. And that helps me buy in on them as a person, as a human being. Now I want to be part of their mission and go help them, radically change their generational chain of poverty and go be the first one that's going to go make money and make an impact. Like, that is an amazing answer. The other answer I get is, I want to make money. I'm like, cool. Okay. Yeah. We all do, but why, right? And the third thing that happens is the shame, where it's like people are afraid to say they want to make money. It's like, buddy, you're coming into sales. Like, I hope you want to make money because I want to make money. I
Yeah,
hope you want to make money so we can go do it together.
yeah.
So if you're not saying you want to make money, you definitely need to talk about that. But to Dale's point, attach a deep why there, make it real.
It's the most honest way of actually answering that question. I've heard so many candidates say, "Oh, I'm interested in technology. Oh, my parents were like in tech sales. I love helping people. I love to learn." And all those things are just basically not very direct and the most honest. It shows
Right.
types of answer. If they give those types of answers, they show that they're really green. And I've shared my perspective on like my answer around why tech sales or even around that question to hundreds of leaders. And that also includes like VPs of sales and also CROs. And when I give them my perspective on it, they're like, that's the exact answer that we're always looking for. And it is, again, the most
Absolutely.
upfront and honest answer that you can possibly give.
And I think from our perspective as the manager, if they're not money motivated, then they're probably not going to be very good at sales because sales is hard, but there's an upside to it. So it's worth it. And if they don't see that and they don't communicate that, you're probably not going to be really a really dedicated, driven SDR.
Spot on, Jack. Exactly.
Yeah. All
Exactly.
right. Next question you said was, why do you want to work at my company?
Yeah. Why my company?
For me, it's important because I don't want to just be like used by you in a way where like you're just a tech company. You're going to pay me a lot of money. Like, no, I actually want to hear that you care about like what we're actually doing, even if it's on just like a business level. Like, do you get the
Yeah. Yeah.
problems we're trying to solve?
When I ask the question, why my company, I want them to be very interested and invested in what my company actually does. Because everybody including myself and everybody on the team and everybody in the company has to be focused on understand what the mission is and the importance of it. I also ask another question after that. It's what does my company do? The
Hmm.
answer I'm generally looking for when I ask like why my company, basically alluding to like, okay, the reason why your company, and then follow with data points. I know that you're founded in 2014. You raised $500 million. You have 871 employees. The last raise that you had was in January of 2022, $50 million. From my understanding, what your company does, and then actually break down exactly what the company does and simplify it more. So you also the candidate answers why my company, then more of a data centric form of understanding what the business, the state of the business, but also exactly what the business does. And
Yeah,
there again, does that answer your question about why your company? Set active listening.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, this is such a simple opportunity to kind of flex your knowledge as the candidate. Like they're literally giving you a silver platter to show off how you know them, the research you've done, you understand their value prop, their ICP, their solution. And
Mm-hmm.
so really all this is, y'all, is like when you apply for these roles, you're preparing for these interviews, can you answer who they target, why they need a solution, like what pain do they run into,
Mm-hmm.
and what does this company provide? What solution do they provide? And you can just articulate that back to the question of why my company, because I see the struggle that VPs of HRs go through when they have to onboard massive teams. And it seems like a big headache, honestly. But, I understand that your company solution is providing this solution right here that helps with that. And I think that's really cool. On a personal level, I'm really looking to be challenged by some of the best people in the industry. I like to surround myself with people that are ahead of me, that will invest in me, that will want to grow with me. And so I see that opportunity within your company as well. So that's the other thing I like to add, Dale, where it's like, give me the business answer that shows my company, but also like, is there an internal answer of like, hey, you guys, you have a cool team, and I want to be part of that.
Yeah, spot on, spot on. In addition to that, it shows that you're doing market research on the company you're actually applying to. So it
Yeah,
shows that you can actually do the job of an SDR when you're doing market research or account research. You're actually like doing prospecting and also doing messaging too. The biggest downfalls when you talk to candidates when they ask that question, they generally verbalize something that's basically on the page of my website. I've I know for certain exactly what's on the page, like front and center. If they say
yeah,
that, then I know they didn't do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. People roll into interviews and they're like, yeah, so you guys have like this thing. And I'm like, yeah, what does that do? And they're like, oh, I don't really know. I didn't really, yeah, I don't know. And that's an immediate disqual. Like you want to apply for an SDR role where you're a researcher, you're going to be going through companies' data and websites and all that. It's funny. So
Name three of our customers. Who would be the
yeah,
persona reaching out to? Oh,
yeah,
you don't know? Got it. Now
yeah.
I how prepared you were.
Simple hack to that, by the way. If you have an interview the next day, just go on their company YouTube page before you go to bed. Just watch some videos and you're going to get some stuff stuck in there the next day you can regurgitate.
Exactly. It's not complicated at all. At all.
Yeah.
And the candidates that do their due diligence, look at the homepage, look at the customers, look at the personas, watch a YouTube video, or watch one or several, either from like some of their customer testimonials or people internally, so some of their employees, how they describe what their company actually does. And
Yeah.
it's so easy, and it makes the interview process so much more amazing for both the candidate but also the hiring manager too.
Absolutely. Agree. Okay, your third favorite question to ask is something about blind spots. So what was it again?
So yeah, it's around blind spots, and generally, like a lot of leaders, they have templated questions that they ask, like why tech sales, why my company. But I always advocate a lot of SDR leaders throw out curveball questions to kind of throw the candidate off a little bit, to see how confident that they are, how articulate they are, and see how they deal under stress. The curveball question I generally ask SDRs or every SDR candidate that I talk to, it's around the sense of EQ. And the
Hmm.
curveball question I generally ask is, what are your blind spots and how do you discover them? And then I give them an analogy. So the analogy goes that you're about to get into a car, and every car has blind spots. And then generally when you get into a car, you drive into a destination, or you can kind of think about that as a goal. But when you're driving, as you're driving to the destination of the goal, you know that you may be going fast, you may be going slow, there may be pedestrians, there you can go make U-turns, you can be all these different things, but you know that your car has blind spots. So what is the most efficient and most effective way to discover what's happening in your blind spots while you're driving to the destination? And the one answer that I generally look for is to have more people in the car with you to tell you what's happening in your blind spots. So you keep your
It's
eyes,
good.
obviously check the mirrors, but you keep your eyes on the road. And the benefit of having more people in the car with you is that you get to the destination or the goal together. And there are a couple reasons why I ask that is that one, it shows that the person has a lot of self-empathy. And they also understand that they don't know everything. The moment they realize they know nothing is the moment that they realize they know everything.
Hmm.
On top of that, it shows to me when they join my team that they'll be very collaborative. So they want to work with people and they know that they can't do things alone. On
Yeah.
top of that, allows me to know that they're very, like, if they have a high sense of EQ or like emotional intelligence or like self empathy, they're in a better position to be more empathetic to people that they're reaching out to or doing discovery with. So then they're able to ask better questions. If they're more inquisitive to themselves, they're able to ask better qualifying questions on discovery calls. They're also able to be more empathetic, so they understand the personas that they're talking to, but also the pain
Mm.
points that they're struggling with as well. Then on top of that, they're more empathetic towards the personas or to themselves, and also the personas that they're talking with. They also increase around their personalization because they can have better messaging all catered around pain points that their
Yeah.
prospect is currently going through. So there's a wide variety of different reasons why I asked that question. Because
And the question itself is that's not a common one. So they have to respond in a very, fluid manner to a question they've never heard before unless they watch this video. And you're looking for that smart answer. What's their gut knee jerk reaction? Is it around team orientation? Is it around humility of I need to go learn more and be coached and I need feedback? Or are they just going to drop the ball on that one?
And a lot of steer candidates, when I ask that question, I know it's a difficult one. And I preface that, like, you can take as long as you want to think about what your answer is. And I watch the candidates and see how they receive that type of feedback. Do they pause? Do they struggle? Do they look around? Do they jump right into it and give an answer. I've gotten some remarkable answers outside of having more people in the car with you. I've heard some instances, well, one instance where an SDR candidate said, I discover what happens to my blind spots by once I get to the destination, I go to see whether or not there's any scratches on my bumper. And so it sounds like the way that you just discover your blind spots is to get in accidents.
Right.
The candidate, right when I asked that question, was just got in a panic. But it's okay. It's okay. Everybody has different perspectives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you okay with a candidate who pauses, or would you prefer to see kind of an immediate but confident response?
That pauses to actually think critically.
Hmm.
Because SDRs are constantly having to think critically around what they should be focusing on and what they should be doing all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's such a great question. I think you're going to force a pause on a candidate because they're going to be like, oh, okay, let me think through that one for a second. So I love that. That's a great one.
And even the upside of them pausing, because then it shows to me in the case that they're on a cold call or a discovery call, and when they get asked a hard question by a prospect, which is always going to happen, I have a sense of how they're potentially going to answer. And even the most honest answer, if they didn't have, they did come up with 4 people in the car with them, or even if they came up with a different answer outside of that, like the bumper one, like the scratches on the bumper, if they say they don't know, that is honestly the most honest answer too. And that's okay. Because even in the case with SDRs, when they're actually doing discovery, like if a prospect asks a very technical question, the last thing I want the SDR to do is lie or make something up under pressure. Yeah. It's fair for them to say, no, I don't know. That's a great question. I'll definitely follow up with you, but also we can answer the question on the next call.
Nice. I like it. Doing the job. That's how it would be if you were on a call.
Doing the job.
I think SDRs, we are under the impression that we have to always be confident and almost like arrogant. Like that answer of, oh, I would look at the scratches on the car after. I like where that's coming from, but we need to make sure we're wrapping our confidence in humility and just clothing it in like, I'm not going to get to this destination alone. So internally, I've always told my reps this, my peers this. Internally, I want to be number 1 on the scoreboard every single day. That's the internal hunger that I have to have. But externally, you better believe that I'm presenting myself as a team player. I'm pouring into my teammates. I'm reaching out for feedback, for advice, for support. So it's that very line that we have to toe between the hunger and the humility to say, yes, I am your rep. I will perform. I want to be number 1. And I'm not going to get there alone.
Yeah. And then on top of that, like one of the biggest concerns around being an SDR leader is whether or not each of their reps are actually working with one another too. It's a reflection. If one individual is not contributing not just to their own success, but they're not contributing to the team's success, it creates a bad team sentiment and it enhances a bad team culture, which is reflected on the leader, and that impacts the professional sentiment of that leader to the rest of the rest of the leaders within an org. So it's a compounding factor in the case that like an SDR is not collaborative or not trying to think about the team as a whole.
Absolutely. All right, last question for you, Dale. What advice would you give to SDR candidates that are trying to break into tech sales right now?
One suggestion I would give is it's trying to get your foot in the door first. It's super hard to get in the door first. Granted, on average, it's around 600 to 800 applicants apply for a single SDR role. So you have to stand out. And generally, recruiters or hiring managers, they spend between 3 to 6 seconds looking at a LinkedIn or a resume. Granted, even recruiters on average are recruiting for 8 different roles. You can imagine the hundreds of applicants that they're getting with those too. So you have to stand out. And so what I recommend to a lot of SDR candidates is being analytical or data centric on their LinkedIns and also their resumes. Get rid of the words as much as you possibly can. If you read under your previous role, if you has a whole bunch of words and sentences or whatever, or paragraphs, look at it and think to yourself, can I read this in 3 to 6 seconds and can I digest this? If the answer is no, it's all wrong. So
Hmm.
generally, what I have SDR candidates think about the value that they provided at their previous employer. It doesn't matter what it is, because if you're an employee or were an employee at a company, you're there to provide value. You did something of value to the company. So you've got to think about what those numbers actually look like. In some instances, if you don't know specifically, think critically about what those numbers actually look like.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be astonished about how some SDR candidates that I talked to didn't even know what value that they created. I talked to a woman who worked at a union job where for 15 years, and she was collecting union dues. And I asked her, I was like, so how many union dues do you usually do through email or through calling every single day? She's like, I think it was around 100. I was like, what is the average cost of a union due? And I'm saying something close to that, around like $150. And then I was like, so what was the conversion rate from you reaching out to them actually signing their union dues? And she's like, it was 100%. I was like, so you did this every single day? She's like, yes. And I was like, you worked 5 days a week? She's like, yes. I was like, so you did this every single day, like around 150 times or whatever, 150
Mm-hmm.
times a day. Each one was $150. And you did it, it's sent out and then you did this every single day, and you've been at this company for 15 years. And she's like, yes. And so we ended up doing the math, like napkin math. And somehow, some form, it came out to nearly $200 million. And she had no idea that's what she was doing. And she's
Yeah.
funny enough, like they just built a new building for us, and they paid cash for it. I'm like, you're the one who built that building.
Yes. 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 That is such a good example. We speak, and when I say we, hiring managers, sales leaders, we speak in numbers, dollar signs, and percentages.
Yeah,
So to Dale's point, you aren't working at your job unless you're making money for the business. So figure out how you're making money for the business,
yeah.
figure out how to turn that into numbers, dollar signs, and percentages.
And you can also structure it in a way that talks in the language of an SDR. So, like, if you did activities at your previous employer, think about your activities on a weekly basis, because that's how SDR leaders are measuring activities. It's generally on a weekly basis. If you conducted meetings, how many did you do on a monthly basis? And at the very end, what type of value did you create? Was it pipeline? Was it revenue? What was it? So you're essentially talking in the language of an SDR and how an SDR leader actually measures things.
Exactly. Simple example would be like a bartender. You could say, yeah, I was a bartender. Or you could say, was a bartender, was able to generate X amount of revenue per week, upsold customers, made regular relationships to ensure repeat business. So that is taking the same experience, but just wrapping this layer of doing the job to get the job around it.
Yeah, like how many tables did you serve on a weekly basis? How many
Yeah.
how many customers did you serve on a weekly basis? And even the case that you don't even know your numbers around like the revenue that you created, you can do simple math. Like, think about what the average like amount of people that would be sitting at a table. Okay, it's 5. Okay, then what would usually be the average check size? Okay, got it. How many tables would you serve on a daily basis? Got it. So you serve X amount on a weekly basis.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. So then and there's usually 21 business days. So you can do the math with 21 business days. And you work there 5 days a week. Now you know how much revenue you generated within a month. And great. So you've worked at this restaurant for a year. Now you can do the math that way too. So you can always consistently be showing the value of what you've done.
It's beautiful. I love it. I love it. Very cool. Well, Dale, thank you for being here with us, man. How do we keep up with you?
Find me on LinkedIn. Super easy. Dale Thorn. You'll see an image of me sitting on the couch with a laptop. Hit me up. I post fairly frequently. My Calendly is definitely in a lot of my previous posts. You can find my Calendly, schedule time with me. I would love to meet you if you're an SDR candidate.
Amazing. And if you are trying to break into tech sales right now, there's a free community for you with a step-by-step guide, totally free, that shows you how to break into tech sales. I'll drop that in the comments below. Dale, thank you for being here, brother. We appreciate you.
Thanks, Jack. I appreciate you, man.